Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm your host, Enthros Campbell. Today we'll be talking about fire safety and prevention. Our resource person is Acting Assistant Commissioner and Officer in charge of the Fire Prevention Division at the Jamaica Fire Brigade, Emilio Ebanks. Mr. Ebanks, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Right, let us start with the stats. Are people really heeding the call to prevent fires?
We, generally speaking, persons are doing that. Of course, there are a lot of mitigating factors. When we look at 2019 coming into 2020, of course, we would have had a dry season that started somewhere around December 2019, which is way early for the dry period.
Yes.
So bushfires would have gone up, but generally speaking, the other stats, the other fires, the other categories of assistance that we provide, they have been trending down, which is good.
Very good. So, like how much? What are the stats really?
When we look at structural fires, for example, 2019 we had 1,544. So far we're just over 1,310. So we're doing better this year.
Yes.
The one that really irks us, of course, is fire-related deaths and the homeless. Those, when we look at last year, we had 28 adults and 7 children. So far this year, we have 24 adults and 1 child that has died in fires.
Yes.
And the homeless is actually trending down as well. 1,076 adults and 428 children. That is coming from last year where we had 1,531 adults and 785 children.
Okay.
So
good.
the numbers are
Yes.
showing good, and
Yes.
we really want to encourage Jamaicans to keep practicing good fire safety practices.
Right. What is good fire safety practices though?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. Recently we had a situation in the news where we saw an incident where it's alleged that an individual turned the knob to start the stove to do some cooking, then left and went for a lighter. Unfortunately, and I really want to speak to the family directly from the Jamaica Fire Brigade. We are extremely sorry for what really happened.
Yes.
It grieves our heart when one individual dies. That individual unfortunately died because, as I said, the information we received is that they turned the knob, left and went for something to light the stove, and then came back and light it, and it caused an explosion. We really want to point out to individuals, if you go back to the basics of how you were taught to light a stove, you make sure that lit before you turn the knob. It's the same for the stoves that have the electronic ignition. You press that ignition button, have the ignition going, and then you turn the knob to turn the gas on. Mm-hmm. So generally speaking, that is it when it comes to the operations of the stove. When you're cooking, of course, you don't leave the cooking unattended any at all, because there can be boilovers. And when you have boilovers, the boilovers can actually lead to fires. We have instances of that where it boils over onto the stovetop for persons who are going to ask what is boil over. And then, of course, those elements that come out of the pot, pieces of what you're cooking, they'll come there and they'll be exposed to the direct heat from the stove, and they will get brittle, and they can actually start a fire there that can spread.
Yes, yes.
So generally speaking, again, whenever it comes to cooking, make sure the cooking is never left unattended. As well, we have to go through the regular practices of don't leave the children and the elderly alone at home, especially the children. And I always tell persons, when you're educating children as to how to be safe, tell them the consequences. It shocks them into reality when you tell them exactly what can happen, but you want to tell them the consequences to ensure that they understand the end result of the situation.
Yes. Another cause of fires is people would light a match and they throw it in the bin.
Yes. We always point out to individuals, never discard an open flame until it's cold. That's the best way. So if you light a match, don't just light and then you throw it away afterwards. What I personally do if I light a match and there's water, I prefer to drop it in the water and leave it there.
Yes, yes.
As well, if there's no water, as I said, make sure that it goes cold so you're not seeing any glowing any at all. Because of course, once you see glowing, there's heat involved. And it depends on where it will fall when you throw it out. It can actually start a fire. And of course, there are the smokers as well who we have to speak to. Never ever smoke in bed, and don't just flick the butt out when you're driving. Because those things actually start fires.
Right. So the kitchen is one source of fires. What else? What are you seeing as some of the causes?
Generally speaking, when it comes to household fires or structural fires, the main thing is electricity. Whether it is coming from persons siphoning off the grid, or situations where you have persons not connected properly, or it might very well be a situation where exposure to the elements. For example, let me give you an example of that one. You have some lines, and they are out there in the sun, they are exposed to the sun, they are exposed to the rain. Over time, the insulation is going to break down. So what we normally point out to individuals is, if your house has been wired, inspected, and passed over 5 years ago, get a certified and a licensed electrician to come in and do some general checks.
Okay.
Just a run-of-the-mill check for you. If you see ants coming out of your sockets, it's an indication that something is going on in there. It's a little bit warmer in there, and it's a little bit more moist than outside, so they've moved in there. When they move in there, they are going to feed on the insulation. And what's going to happen is that the negative and positive will come together at some point. And that will start a fire.
So after 5 years, you should always get somebody to check it. A
licensed and certified electrician, because what we don't want is for somebody from down the road who knows a little bit about electrical work to come in. They unfortunately might not do the same job as the licensed and certified electrician.
Okay.
So you want to ensure that.
Okay. We take a break now. We come back with some more information about fire safety and prevention. Stay with us.
We will overcome the threat.
The public health team began to develop protocols that would help to delay the entry of the virus into the country, contain its spread, and slow the transmission among the population.
We will be implementing an unprecedented $25 billion fiscal stimulus.
We remain committed to making this a decade of growth for Jamaica.
The 2020 Year in Review, January 4 to 26, 2021, Mondays to Fridays inside Jamaica magazine. That's the 2020 Year in Review, building forward together.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're talking with Acting Assistant Commissioner and Officer in charge of the Fire Prevention Division of the Jamaica Fire Brigade, Emilia E. Banks. Okay, so we have a lot more children at home now because of the pandemic, the COVID-19. What would be your advice to parents now?
One of the good things that COVID has done in that area is that adults are actually working from home as well. So what we found surprisingly is that adults are there, so there's more supervision for the children, because we would normally see a spike of house fires and children dying from fires or becoming homeless during certain times of the year. Summer is one of those. And of course, the children, I don't want to say they've been on summer since COVID has started, but they've been at home, but adults have been at home as well, working from home. So it's really just to point out to the adults that the children, of course, will not have school to be a distraction, so to speak, in terms of going out to school. They'll be at home now, so there are more things there to occupy their time. So what you need to do is make sure that that time is used productively. So of course you want to ensure supervision, and you can also take the time to teach them some things that normally you would not have the time to do because you're now at home with them as well.
Right. So there's one benefit from
That is
COVID-19. Good, good.
Yes.
All right, tell us, you have had to change your operations, the
Yes,
fire brigade. Talk to us about that.
Well, before COVID, what we had was 3 shifts working in a particular 24 hours.
Yes.
So you would have one working for 8 hours, one working for 7, and then another working for 9 hours. Because of the fact that we wanted to limit as much as possible how much time our firefighters spend on public transport and that kind of thing, the management came up with the decision to have firefighters working 24-hour shifts, which is, generally speaking, it happens in the rest of the world. We were still at that point where we did 8, 9, and 7. So now we're working 24-hour shifts. So you would do a straight 24-hour shift, and then after that time, you'd go home, you'd get a break for 36 hours, and then you'd come back to work and do another 24-hour shift.
Okay. All right. Yes. And you're not just fighting fires. Tell us about the other services that you provide.
I'm glad you asked that because a lot of persons tend to associate the Jamaica Fire Brigade with only fighting fires. We do a lot more than that. And our services would have been called upon a lot of times during this COVID situation,
Yes.
especially our emergency medical technicians, which persons normally call the paramedics. We would have seen the situation in Westmoreland recently. We have ambulances in Sablamar and we have ambulances in Negril. We also have in Hanover, we have in St. James, in St. Catherine as well. And all of these areas are hotbed areas. So those EMTs have been called out. We now see Trelawney spiking as well in terms of COVID. We have ambulance in Trelawney as well. So all of those areas that we have ambulance service, we have been seeing the calls coming in for our firefighters. And I really want to implore the public, when you call, be open with us, because we need to know what it is that we'll be responding to before we get there. We've had situations where persons, suspected COVID persons, and they've called and they've given us a myriad of reports. In one particular report, one person told us that it was childbirth. When we got there, we didn't even see anybody pregnant. Had it not been for our mantra to always be prepared for whatever eventualities, they could have gone into that situation unprepared.
Yeah, but it was something
that would
else.
have exposed them. Yes, it was actually a COVID call. So the person reported that somebody was about to have a child, and when we got there, from our checks, we realized that it was a COVID situation.
Yes.
And of course, we handled the situation and we assisted.
How do you handle it? And you don't have a doctor with you or a nurse?
Well, the thing is, when you go to the University of the West Indies or to UTech, wherever you get your pre-hospital training, you are prepared for all these eventualities. As well, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, which is our guide in terms of dealing with these things from a medical perspective. They provide guidance, they provide training, so all our EMTs would have gone through the training. They would have been operating under the guidance of the medical doctors at the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and our ambulances would have been prepared. The team would have been prepared for all of these things. So when you go in, it is really facing the situation and relying on your training to handle it.
Okay. So you do the EMS to provide that kind of service. Anything else? Any other kind of service?
There's a fire prevention, which is where I am at
Yes.
the fire brigade headquarters. And one of the teams that always call me out when I forget them is our maintenance staff.
Okay.
Critical, very, very critical. We have over 100 vehicles in the fleet. The maintenance staff is extremely important. They keep the vehicles running, and when you come into the fire brigade, what you can do is you can move into one of the specialized areas. So there's fire prevention, there's the emergency medical services, there's the maintenance section that you can go into, or at the fire brigade headquarters where everything comes together, it's like a melting pot, is really the administrative cell of the Jamaica Fire Brigade.
You also service water hydrants. What should people do when they see water running from the fire hydrants?
Once you see water coming from a hydrant, go into the nearest fire station, call the nearest fire station and report it. Or you can call us at the fire brigade headquarters, especially if you are located in Kingston. And the easy number to remember is 922-0007. So that's 876-922-0007. Once you tell the operator that you are reporting a hydrant, They will send it to the fire prevention department. The situation will be logged. We will send a team out to assess and come out and carry out the repairs.
Okay. Why is it important for persons to report these water hydrants that are not functioning well?
The first basis is that if it's not functioning well, it's not going to serve its purpose. And in the event that there's a fire in this particular area and that hydrant is not working properly, it will not be able to assist us. And if it's not able to assist us, we will not be able to assist you as efficiently as we ought to.
Yes, yes.
So it's very important that you report all situations with fire hydrants. And I want to beg persons literally, do not do anything to harm or disturb the fire hydrants when you see them out there. We've gone and seen, and you are about to couple up the hose to the hydrant, and when you look there, juice boxes, food boxes, persons would have stuff down in the hydrant valve pit, which is the area that you would turn to operate the hydrant from. All of these things will slow down the operation.
Yes, yes.
And in an emergency where life and death depends on it, a second is slowing down that can lead to a death.
You have been on a drive to fix these hydrants. How are you doing? Tell us about how that program. How is it going?
When we started this drive, we were just about 30% of the over 15,000 fire hydrants on the island working. At this time, we're about 70 to 80% of those hydrants working. And the team, I want to, of course, applaud the fire hydrant teams. We have two teams, one in Western Jamaica and one in Kingston. They work relentlessly. They work around the clock to ensure that these numbers are up. And as an organization, as an emergency response, the premier emergency response agency, we have to ensure that a part of our corporate plan and our operational plan is to ensure the efficiency of these fire hydrants, because of course that increases our efficiency whenever we go out there. So we make sure that they're all working.
Good. We thank you for the work you're doing, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming to share with us today.
You're welcome.
This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Acting Assistant Commissioner and Officer in Charge of the Fire Prevention Division at the Jamaica Fire Brigade, Emilio E. Banks. For more information on fire safety, contact the Jamaica Fire Brigade at 876-619-1511 or visit their website at www.jfb.gov.jm. Until next time, when Get the Facts brings you, as usual, more useful information. I'm Rose Campbell. Thanks for watching. Have a good 2021.